Morning everybody. Firstly I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous community on whose land we're gathering today. It's the Kirai-Warrung and the Gunditjmara people, and I would like to pay my respect to their elders, current and from the past, and any elders that may be present today. As in my introduction, I have the wonderful opportunity to work as the Urban Ecology Management Manager for the Melbourne Metro Rail Tunnel project, which is building a very large piece of infrastructure in the heart of Melbourne. And what we're going to talk about today is that in approaching our urban ecology opportunities, we decided to partner with loci. So we wanted to ensure that our green-blue infrastructure opportunities were maximised. We knew we needed to get more expertise in the tent, and we had a lot of what I call known unknowns. So we knew that there's a lot of stuff we didn't know in detail. We weren't in a position or likely to go and employ a whole urban ecology team per se, but we wanted to get really world-class knowledge and expertise to help shape our project from the outset, and that's what we did. So it's a groundbreaking partnership, and we were able to develop this in accordance with Victorian Government procurement opportunities. And I'm not sure how many of you are in that sector, but procurement can be quite structured and quite rigid and inflexible, so we felt really pleased that we were able to come up with a model that would get through the gates of the procurement gatekeepers as well. It's not doing it for me. Yeah, that's the laser actually. The laser as well. This one here. Sorry. Beautiful. So that's what we're here to talk about today, is the green-blue infrastructure opportunity in a very significant major project using the partnership approach. Sorry, it's still not. That's what I did. All right, I'll work it out for a minute. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with our project. There's obviously an internet site and you can go and browse that, and there's a lot of information available. But ostensibly what we're doing is building a 9-kilometre double tunnel that runs from the inner west in South Kensington, just near the JJ Holland Park, goes underground with 5 underground stations at Arden in North Melbourne near the North Melbourne Football Club, Parkville up in the University and Hospitals precincts, down through CBD North near RMIT and the City Baths, CBD South at the City Square, and both those 2 CBD stations have direct connectivity to the existing underground rail network, then down through to the Domain, and it pops up just past the South Yarra station. What we wanted to do was understand that how are we going to actually deliver these blue-green opportunities for the project, and it really was a matter of making sure that the requirements were embedded in the design for the project, in the procurement model, but they weren't a nice to have that comes after the fact when, as you would all probably appreciate, it's often way too late and it can be just something quite superficial. So we developed a range of guidance material for the procurement process, and we also have developed a living infrastructure plan, which is very close to being finalised, and we're hoping to launch that within the next several weeks. The opportunities that we really wanted to focus on were also about improving really the critical things on the ground. So it was around tree canopy cover. There's a lot of angst about removing trees in any major project. Admittedly, we get a lot less grief than people who are building roads for vehicles. When you're building rail infrastructure, the community is a lot more tolerant of those impacts. It's about stormwater management and urban ecology outcomes, and it's about ensuring that these opportunities are embedded, and that whoever gets the job to build this fabulous project is obliged to and required to meet targets, and there'll be public targets as well. There's also a range of research opportunities, and Sheridan will talk about those further on. There you go. I won't get it wrong again. The project itself is, in addition to those rail tunnels and the underground rail stations, there's a whole range of new high-capacity signalling. We want to be able to drive trains closer together along the network to save time. It's also about new high-capacity metro trains, so the new trains will be roughly the same length as existing ones, but they'll have the capacity to carry about 30% more passengers. And it's also about signalling upgrades so that the whole system runs as a cohesive unit. We're taking trains out of the most densely travelled areas in the Melbourne network, so Sunbury through to the city, which currently runs around in the Melbourne Underground Rail Loop, or commonly known as MERL in the office, and also Cranbourne Pakenham, which runs trains also into the city loop. They are the largest growth areas in Melbourne, both the north and the southeast, and that's where the largest increases in travel demand are coming from as well. So by taking those out of the existing rail network and the existing underground, we're effectively giving our rail network a bypass operation and creating a lot more capacity. I think I'm a slide ahead of myself, but I'll just touch on the environmental effects process that we had. We prepared a statement. We had a 7-week hearing with the Independent Assessment Committee. About 400 submissions were received, and finally we got the Minister's endorsement to go ahead in December of last calendar year. And we've got the sustainability targets that I've touched on already, and they're about tree canopy, increasing biodiversity, so that we've got, in all of the plantings across the project, we've got a minimum of 25% of biodiversity, multi-storey plantings, and no net loss of vegetated surface. And here we come to the partnership with Loci, and I think I sort of touched on it at the beginning. We're wanting to get the partnership, get the state-of-the-art knowledge and expertise, working with a team of people from a range of areas of expertise. We're able to get that in a collaborative manner, so we get just exactly what touch we need, what degree of expertise can come in and input to the project at critical times, and it's a very flexible and nimble way of engaging with our colleagues. And Loci, they draw upon a very extensive pool of experts. You've got a handful of the folk here today, and they've also got links to research organisations, which again gives us the opportunity to bring research and the thinking at the forefront into the contemporary design and development of the project, which makes a lot of sense when you understand that our project is due for completion in 2026, so it's around a 10-year horizon. So if we weren't working with the cutting-edge knowledge now, we'd already be sort of 10 years behind by the time the train station's open. So on that note, I'd like to introduce Sheridan to come forth and...
Thanks, Maggie. That was great to get the...
Yes, and it's this one here.
Right, yeah, that I have. So Loci Environment Place was brought in by Metro Rail Authority. They asked, because we're a not-for-profit organisation, we're a bit different to... we've set ourselves up to fill a gap that we have found. So as a not-for-profit organisation, we're committed to dealing with city challenges that you all know and love very well. And what we have said, of all the range of different things that we're all working on to make cities more sustainable and livable, Loci is looking at practitioners and how we can get more research to practitioners, and how that we have different practitioners from different disciplines around the table at the same time. So we've really that's sort of the gap that we're trying to fill, and this project has really responded to it, which is great. Now, part of that is, whilst practitioners are who we are supporting, it's the link from the research bodies, and we learnt this from the water industry. Loci is not a water industry body. It's just as much working with urban planners, it's working with urban ecologists, it's working with sharing cities people. But to be honest, we've taken the knowledge from the stormwater industry. We've seen how effectively the stormwater industry has changed culture, and we do think one of the key factors is the relationship. If Tony's in the room, I'm sure one of the key factors is that we've been able to grab that research really quickly and get it out in policy. which has been affecting change. And even if it's a little bit wrong, change, I laughed that Tim Fletcher changed the policy on us within 1 year. So we all had to flip it around, but we're also very open to that change as well. So we have been very committed to doing that, and with this, Metro Tunnel appointed us. We, under a partnership agreement, when they contacted us, they said, oh, do you do consulting work? And I said, at the time, it was me, I said, oh, we don't, in the normal way, we'll do a partnership agreement. So, and what that means is that there's a commitment to doing normal, new thinking, so and that knowledge will be shared. So our IP agreement is different. And Maggie talked about the pain of getting that through the procurement, because the first time's the hardest, but MMRA got it through procurement, and it's great. And many of you are in the room, and we have been able to draw across a range of different specialists who do, as you all do your thing, and give your advice in a great way. But they all know that, that as a coordinator, we're on the phone saying, hang on, can't this new stormwater thing help this new tree thing? And so we're really pulling different ideas, and each of the consultants know that annoying phone call comes more often than not. That's photo of me. So just who do we draw on? The board has set up a fair process that we call the Urban Well. So anyone who's interested in doing this work can register, and essentially there's a $60 fee, which is not a deal breaker, but the main thing is by registering you're saying you're happy for the knowledge to be shared on the projects you work on. Still confidentiality issues dealt with, but in general, if you're doing a new, and that grey literature phenomenon, which drives all consultants nuts, that you do great work and the project manager doesn't do anything with it, and that great work goes away, never to be seen again. We're really just saying, well, no, that grey literature can go out there and more people can use it. So what have we done on the Living Infrastructure Plan? We have done. We put together the Living Infrastructure Plan, and as Maggie said, I'll just draw, it's come down to urban ecosystems, so urban canopy, urban ecology, soils, and urban water. And I'll just, what we've learned through this process, so I have a wonderful state and local government background, and I'm certainly familiar with people saying just regulate things, it'll give you your best outcome. I've certainly challenged that, and I've seen how with this process, the tunnel is being built by the market primarily, and so what it is a mix of a range of different things. We've been able to get regulatory positions in which are minimum standard. The benefit of regulation is that you have to do it. The disbenefit is that it's pretty well your minimum standard. So to match with that, we put targets in, which the water industry is very familiar with, but other industries aren't. So targets can become a minimum standard if they are endorsed to that level. Policy positions are a mix. So policy positions can endorse a minimum standard to push up on opportunities, and we did that in this list. We said we could see that perhaps a stormwater harvesting offset project nearby could work well. We give a little bit more information. We can't say we're funding it or doing it, but by at least putting it out there, that's a step further than we were before. And the market, when they go for a bid, they see that. And in fact, we did one-pagers on a number of different initiatives that weren't yet a position of MMRA, and MMRA were brave enough to put it out there as an opportunity, and we did that with 10 different research project ideas. We contacted the research bodies and said, what research applied learning would you do with this project if it's going ahead anyway? And we wrote just simple one-pagers, and those one-pagers all went to the PPP bidders, so they could look at them and go, oh, actually that's doable for us. We might build that into our bid. We do design support as well. So as low-code, a bunch of design specialists, Metro Rail already has amazing people working on the job in different capacities. But the deadlines and the deliverables and the keep the tunnel so it doesn't enclose in is the main driver. We feel like a bit of a luxury, but we can come along to different meetings, and when we say, let's try and put a tree in a tram stop, and everyone says, no, you can't do that, purely for path dependency, because no one's ever done it before, we will say, actually, there's this option, this option, this option, and we'll run off and show you how it could be done. You know, and it's a few hours of us going to do that and bringing it forth, and that pushes the argument so much further ahead. Some of them we win, some of them we don't, but we're a lot further ahead than we were before. And then, of course, specification. We've had great fun getting specs in, tying to our different commitments. The other thing we did is best practice notes, and this is a loci thing in general. So what we're saying is minimum standards, regulation is minimum standards, and then we always hope state government will put some best practice in, but state government really sit on their hands with this stuff. So we're like, all right, well, if that's going to happen, at least let's write some best practice notes, as simple and as practical as possible. And yes, they aren't put in place or endorsed, but if someone wants to go along and do a hoarding that is best practice for urban, different living infrastructure outcome, at least they can go and have a look at this as a starting point. Before that, there was nothing there. You kind of don't know how to do something really well if you want to. And so we worked through a number of different solutions, we did work to have this plan finalised by today, didn't we, Maggie? But it will come out in a week or two, it's a bit of a teaser. We've got a number of initiatives through, which is fantastic, and I'm just going to draw your attention to a couple of them. So our targets, and many in the room will be familiar with targets, and Meg from Urban Forest Consulting is here today. We're very familiar with targets at the municipal level, and so we were able to put in a target at a project level, which was great. And because politicians get nervous about the commitments, but it was just about getting a methodology that everyone's comfortable with. Similarly, we started to play with these targets. They're not as beautiful, but it's the best we could do about making sure we get vegetated area. Stormwater industry is very familiar with having permeable area, but we're now interested in what goes into those garden beds, that they have the maximum biodiversity value. And of course the water targets, the water industry's always been great on targets, so the rest are catching up. This is one of the practice notes, it's the living hoardings, and I just wanted to put it up there because we're really proud of this for integration. In step 1, we've got just really clear little steps that cover make sure that the hoardings address walkability, cycling, placemaking, microclimate, water and pollinators. Step 2 is the actual design, where we're covering safety, air quality, climate resilience, water conservation, stormwater health, biodiversity, sustainable materials and reuse. So we really are saying you've got one site, one opportunity, get multiple benefits for that site. By the way, here's the steps. We don't say what you should do, but we say here's what you should consider, and this is what a key piece of research is telling us. Now, MMRA did put that out as part of their brief for a living hoarding for the city square. So keep your eye on city square. It may be looking different. All right. So another best practice note is sizing tree pits for stormwater and tree health. So our E2 design, we're able to pull together the stormwater side of things. Then we got our soils. Cecil Australia come in to add more in tree health. Now these best practice notes, as stormwater experts, it probably won't tell anyone in the room things that you don't know already, because these best practice notes are not designed for you guys to know how to build the tree pits. These are designed for the project manager who's working out who to get on his team, who's working out the budget, who's working out, oh, you can't just dig a hole, I'm actually going to have to get some expertise in. So when you read that, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know all that. But kind of the experts aren't the audience for this stuff. This is about trying to get the decision and the money in the first instance. And the last issue was actually locating trees for living infrastructure benefits. And the state government's really behind on this. They say if you're removing a tree in the urban area, despite all the evidence of the value of nature in urban areas, if you're removing a tree, oh, well, unless it's a native tree, Indigenous, you need to get offset out in flippin' Mornington or somewhere. There's nothing else. And we're saying quite clearly, no, you need to have offsets for the community that's affected by the loss of the tree. And we calculate what have they lost by losing that tree. Microclimate, water, amenity, all the environmental eye tree problems that air quality benefit. And then we say, right, we are replanting to try and return those benefits to that local community, which is the least we can do for community members that are so sad to be losing their trees. So that's a wrap up, and Maggie gets the last slide to say when we're going to be able to get on this train.
Yes, and I think if you were travelling in the city of Melbourne in peak hour, you'd be wishing it was sooner than later. Yeah, although not all of our stakeholders across the project believe there is any constraints to getting on a tram from somewhere down near the Shrine, for instance. Anyway, construction is underway, so we're already doing the early work. So we're delivering a range of projects already, and that's ostensibly moving electricity, gas, telco, all of those other things that are all buried under the streets of most cities, moving them out the way so the big holes in the ground can start being built. Property acquisition is underway, and unlike some other projects where there's been a lot of outcry and upset by the community in relation to property acquisition, I think our project's learned a lot from previous rail projects, and we've got a fabulous CEO who actually went and sat in the lounge rooms of people, every person whose property was proposed to be acquired, and had a conversation with them, you know, for an hour or so. I mean, Evan's just a terrific guy, and I think it's that work that's really paid out and played out well for us. We're in the middle of evaluating the PPP, 3 bidders, 3 consortia, all being done electronically. There are about that many hard drives of information, because I'm not probably allowed to tell you anything about the secret squirrel business, but that's a lot of information. When you go into the first page and you see that there are how many documents? You know, think of the order of 4,371 for one bidder's thing, and that's not all of their documents. They're just the main things. So we've got a very large team, and we've been very, very grateful to rely on and use the expertise of our loci buddies as well. And RSA, so that's the Signalling Alliance. So that's what's going to get the signalling working from Sunbury down through to Cranbourne-Pakenham, and where are we up to in that one? They're still in evaluation as well. I should say we, because I do a bit of work in that project in my spare time. And road network changes are underway. So because we know there's impacts in the city while the project's underway, we're doing what we can. There's about 50 projects called network enhancement projects. A lot of them are just signalling changes so that you get better signalling on Kingsway, for instance, to encourage traffic out of St Kilda Road. And those projects are underway as well. Detailed design is continuing to be developed, and obviously once we have our preferred and appointed partner, we'll be moving in for that phase in 2018. Major construction will commence next year on the tunnels and stations, and we'll also award the RIA contract. RIA is the Rail Infrastructure Alliance, which is doing the portal, so that's where you're taking the land connection to the tunnel connection. And I don't know how much any of you know about rails. Don't ever think it's just 2 parallel pieces of steel. It's way more complex than that, and these things need to feed in and cross over and not run into each other. So there's a hell of a lot of engineers working on that. And we've also got target completion for 2026. Obviously, we'd like to bring it in earlier, but we're at part in the hands of our PPP partner.
So 2026, maybe?
2026, I figure. So yeah, just mark that date.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.